Can you explain for us the idea about going into recession, even though we've got rising wages and also record labour shortages? So we've got a massive skill shortage in this country. The Four Corners and 7:30 Report running stories on this at the moment. I only watch the ABC, as it seems, and there's oranges on the ground in orchards that cannot be picked. Orchards need 200 staff. They've only got 20, and that's through a visa program. And there's a visa processing shortages. We're desperate for workers across all sorts of industries and services. And how can you have a recession when you've got record unemployment and wages are starting to be on the rise?
Well, the key thing is really going to be about, at the moment, our base case is not a recession in Australia. We're certainly expecting a slowdown, particularly in those consumer areas, in areas like housing as well, where construction is probably going to moderate fairly sharply in the second half of next year. But what's going to cause it? It's going to be rising unemployment. It's the fact that the RBA or central banks globally are trying to get essentially labour markets are too tight. And how do you get labour markets less tight? Well, either you need more workers, you need to increase the supply of labour. We're trying to do that in Australia by ramping up migration, but there are some challenges with the visa system. I speak regularly with a couple of migration agents about what they're seeing, and despite some of the positive news stories, it is still pretty challenging. There's still pretty long delays. The immigration minister was out earlier this week saying that the median wait time for a visa to be processed is now 66 days. That's down from over 80 days in June, but pre-COVID, you're probably looking at 2 to 3 weeks. So it's still a lot longer than it normally takes. The other way to bring down, to see a looser labour market is to reduce demand for labour, to essentially either have job losses or businesses not wanting to, instead of wanting to hire 5 workers, only wanting to hire 1 or 2. And so that's going to be, what central banks are trying to achieve is essentially to drive a moderation in labour demand, to take some of that heat out of the wages pressure and to take some of that pressure off inflation. And if they overdo it, if unemployment gets pushed too high, that's when you could end up in getting into a bit of a recession.